We have just a few more minutes left in this show, so I want to get to as many callers as I possibly can. Jessica is on the line. Hello, Jessica. What's your comment or question about this?
Sure, I have 4 points tonight.
Okay.
First, I agree that the big corporations should pay taxes. And does the retraction include negotiations for those big businesses to pay those taxes? Secondly, I'm noticing on the calls, most public voters don't understand the tax calculation. They think it's 37% of their pay.
Right.
And that's not true.
Right.
So, for a $300,000 to $350,000 house, it could be around between $600 to $800 a year, which is, $50 to $60 a month. So I'd like for you guys to kind of explain that a little bit more. Also, the third thing is Nashville PD, to include the sheriff's department. The reality is they're down 800 officers. That's a lot.
When you put together PD and sheriff.
I'm sorry?
When you're talking about you put together the Nashville Sheriff's Department or Davidson County Sheriff's Department and MNPD. Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they are down 800 officers. So to take away more is awful to think about. And then the fourth thing, Tori, can you explain exactly how you request the dollars to be removed from the city, but then you come and you don't have a plan for those jobs to remain in the city? So, for example, there's police officers, sheriff's department, firefighters, librarians, and then those who depend on the actual transportation in the city. What is your plan?
Okay, Tori, first of all, I want to talk to you about addressing corporations in this referendum. Is there any reference to let's get these corporations to start, pulling their share?
So there's nothing that we can do to change a contract that's already in effect. So if the government's already made a deal with these corporations and they're giving them a 20-year land deal, there's not anything that we can do for something that's already in effect if there was not a clawback provision that was part of that plan to begin with. So they should look at the clawback provisions. They should look at the things that they can actually claw back when that company doesn't create the jobs that they say they will create. So that is a possibility there. The next piece of it, you say, well, what is your plan? It is our role as a grassroots organization to elevate people's voices. And so when we are actually out talking to the people and we know that they can't afford this 34% property tax hike and they are very upset about it, it was our goal to elevate their voices. Now, it's Metro's job, it's the Metro Council's job to come up with a balanced budget. And so for the fact that they had been told last year by the state comptroller that they were going to have to cut their reckless spending and basically turn from their wicked ways, and they haven't. And, now we're in this position. So this referendum, this Tax Protection Act, seeks to do a lot of the things that will address the long-term reasons why we are in this financial crisis. A 34% property tax hike does nothing to stop the reckless government spending, and it does nothing to stop the cronyism that has taken place for decades.
Jason, I do think it's worthwhile to spend our last few minutes talking to and clarifying what a 34% property tax increase is for the average homeowner. How does this work? Because we did have a caller say, my kids can't afford to take 34% of their gross income or their net income and pay it out. And that's not what it is.
Okay. So on a $250,000 house, which, by the way, the median assessed value or appraised value, according to the property assessor, is $212,000. So half of the homeowners in Nashville, their home is appraised at $212,000. Now, appraisal is not your market value. It's not the appraisal that you got when you bought your home. It's the appraisal according to the property assessor, which is always lower than the market value. So don't go off of that. You got to look up your property record. Now, if it's $250,000, what you're going to do is multiply that by 25%. That brings you to $62,500, and you divide by 100, which is we tax on every $100 of assessed value. So when you do that, it's $625, and that's what you're going to pay for the year, because it was a $1 increase, right? So a little bit more than that, but $625. So if you're a $250,000 house, $625 for the year, $52 to $53 a month. Now, I get it. That's another cell phone bill. And that is not something that anybody wanted to take on in the middle of this pandemic. But it's also not what Tori and her friends are making it out to be as some massive thing, especially when you consider that the reappraisal, someone earlier said that during the reappraisal, your taxes are going to go up. But that's not what happens across the whole city. Because in 2017, if you lived in a $600,000 house and it went to $700,000, your taxes went down by $1,200 a year. Some people's go up, some people's go down, depending on which areas are growing the fastest. So what we're doing now is we're making people pay their fair share who've been getting a huge break for the last 3 years.
And Jason, I'm going to have to cut you off right there because I am out of time, but I do want to thank you both for being with me. And I have a feeling we're going to be right back in this position not too far along in the future. So thank you all for being with me tonight.
Thanks for having us, Carrie.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be back to wrap things up after this.